We live. We live. So good afternoon to everyone out there. We want to just first and foremost thank everyone for their presence here with us today. We would much rather have this conversation in person with everyone else, but due to our circumstances, we have to move to the next best thing, which is our virtual platform. So we want to thank you guys out there for taking the time out of your day to be with us today. As we just have some dialogue. So give us a couple minutes. We're going to be quick setting up the final finishing touches, and we're going to get this thing on the way. So, good to see everyone out there. My name is Mark May, part of Urban Demand, in partnership with Anti-Violence Ventures, Black Man Talk podcast, episode one of many. All right, hang tight. Doing that
Testing.
Right there.
Testing 1 2 1 2.
Test. You got me? All right. Testing.
That mic check was too natural, man.
Testing live.
Yeah, right.
All right, Mark. So,
Man. So we live and we getting mic check lessons from Luck right here. So we pre-gaming a little bit as we get started. But first and foremost, I want to say good afternoon to everyone. My name is Mark May. I'm on behalf of Urban Demand. And we just want to have a little conversation today. So we invite everyone out there that's with us today to just take part in our dialogue, just listen up and, hope that something that we say today can be inspiring, can be encouraging, motivating in some way, shape, or form to anyone that's out there, and then to ourselves and to our community, as Black men. I think it's important that it's a lot of talk about, what Black men can do, and what they should be doing, right? But then it's about taking that action as well, and stepping up to the platform and actually doing it. So putting the action behind the words. So that's what we're here today. Like I said, my name is Mark May on behalf of Urban Demand. We're gonna just go down the line and let everyone introduce themselves. We'll bring it back in together and talk about why we're here a little bit, and then we'll get going. So,
How you guys doing? First of all, thank you for having me be a part of this. I'm truly humbled and honored to be a part of this conversation, very important conversation. My name is Terrence Harden. They call me Good Luck, formerly known as Bad Luck. And, singer, songwriter, rapper, stripper extraordinaire.
All of the
ladies,
many hats.
No, but thanks for having me, man. I appreciate being here.
How's everyone doing? Thanks again for having me as well. BJ Abram, I'm a civil trial attorney, born and raised in Compton, California. I'm also a attorney all throughout the state. I handle primarily personal injury cases. I do a lot of activism in the community as well. I'll just second also that this is a really important conversation. Glad to be a part of it, and look forward to being a part of more.
Hey, my name is Kareem Grimes, actor, entrepreneur. Super happy to be here. Definitely to be amongst these individuals, these brothers here to really talk about this topic. Born and raised in Inglewood, California, and yeah. So once again, just happy to be here and definitely put my input in.
How's everybody doing? My name's Devin Terry, 1/3 of Urban Demand. And I just want to say I appreciate you gentlemen for coming out here and having this positive talk with us, man. So, again, appreciate you, gentlemen.
All right, and last but not least, my name is Justin Rohn. I'm also 1/3 of Urban Demand. And I just echo the sentiments of my brothers. I appreciate every single one of y'all being here. You definitely were, we chose brothers that knew, we know that we can have a really serious dialogue with and get some solutions and some things coming from it. So, I appreciate you guys for just taking the invitation and being here. So we appreciate it. And let's get started, man.
So we'll dive right in. So just for those that are out there, first, Urban Demand in partnership with Anti-Violence Ventures present to you this Black Man Talk podcast, which is a part of the Brothers Conversation series. So if you tap in with Anti-Violent Ventures, you can tap in to see a bunch of different series, with brothers talking about different topics of things of that nature. So this is just one part of that conversation. So what is the Anti-Violence Ventures project? Anti-Violence Venture, Black men and boys take a lead in the innovative anti-violence social intervention model being prototyped by a team project funded by Blue Shield of California Foundation. The product was developed and initially prototyped in the late 2018, and we are now in the second phase of the pilot project, working with Black male-owned or led businesses, organizations, and agencies to support embedding an aspect of partner, family, and community violence prevention into some aspect of their general business, activities, and programming. Anti-Violence Ventures focuses on the intrinsic links between three types of violence that are prevalent among Black couples, families, and in Black neighborhoods: domestic violence, family, and community violence. You know, it's assumed that Black men and boys don't talk about violence in the community, don't talk about violence prevention. You know, it's just a topic that we just run away from, right? You know, it's assumed that. But this organization believes that with investments, incentives, support, and encouragement, Black men and boys will engage in transformative dialogue and action around violence and violence prevention. So that's a little bit about what this platform, or how we got together today, right? Now, with that being said, and this goes for anybody, we just proposed the first question, can you give me an example or a couple definitions of any type of violence that you see? So let's just throw it out there, since we're talking about violence, there are all different types of violences. Give me a couple definitions of any type of violence that you see out there.
I mean, like you said, it's all types of violence. What violence is, well, for one, violence is not necessarily criminal in nature, I'd say. What violence is a physical force used by a being or some sort of individual against another. And I say it's not criminal in nature because when, for instance, we're watching football and you see a safety, sprint down and hawk somebody, in the flats after he catches a pass and smash, you're like, oh, that's a violent collision, right? When you see a lion attack its prey, it's not criminal in nature. Criminal is something that is a man construct. So violence is something that is a natural course in human evolution. It's a natural course in everyday life of all species, I think. How we deal with violence and what level we take violence to is what we, will become, and we start to deal with issues such as domestic violence, such as criminal violence, Black on Black crime, or white on white crime, or whatever type of criminal aspects that we bring into play. But I think violence in general is really just a physical force being imprinted or impressed upon something else.
Dope.
I think that's it right there. That brother broke it down on all.
Kinda hard
I
to
have
follow
nothing to
that,
give.
huh?
Right?
Yeah, once you get the real definition of it, that was, pretty much got it.
Exactly. I have nothing to give.
BJ answered the question as if I
Webster's,
gave him the script prior to coming out here, and he just had it, right?
Usually you say, well, I would like to add on to that. I have nothing to add on. I'm good.
Right. So appreciate you, BJ, on just your perspective on that. You know what I mean? And I think we all, can piggyback off. Well, it's hard to piggyback off, but we can agree. Did anybody up top want to piggyback off that, or
I think one of the aspects he said when we talk about a constructive man-made, violence is constructive of man. But I would say today is that what we deal with more in our communities, as far as Black males, typically is gang violence. Mm-hmm. I think that alone has taken a lot of our youth, hope, and a lot of the potential, and kind of shoved them into this box, right? And I think it's up to us. This conversation today should hopefully inspire some people with some different angles to help our youth, right? But I'll say gang violence is one of the top things that we face right now as Black males in the community.
And I think I would go to add, my definition of it will be a problem that, our community, our friends, our associates, a problem that we see, right? And I think, this is, I was trying to work on a segue, right? But I think the definition of it is a problem that we need a solution for. And I think definitely here we're gonna, be able to have some takeaways from this conversation. So yeah, my definition is a problem.
So being go ahead, love. I'm sorry.
Well, I kind of want to stay on topic of the conversation, but I wanted to add something I recently heard, and it also provided some perspective to violence, and I thought it was interesting because I was listening to some men and women going back and forth about situation that happened on Clubhouse. I don't know if anybody's on Clubhouse a couple of days ago, where it was a guy who was ranting and raving, disrespecting a lot of women, and he went crazy. He ended up getting kicked off of Clubhouse. And the conversation turned to his violent behavior, right? So the question is, can we have violence without the physical part of it? Because a lot of people, the line was kind of split between, well, he didn't physically do anything to anybody, but I guess the way he took it as an aggressive tone and was attacking people verbally, and the things he was saying reminded people of violence, maybe because of, trauma and all kinds of things that come from that, or, what you could be inciting with this speech or the verbal, slurs and slangs you tossing at people. So I was going to ask, what do you guys think about that also? Because yes, when I hear violence, usually if I hear somebody says somebody was violent, I'm automatically thinking they hurt somebody, they physically did something, but you tend to not think about somebody just verbally attacking somebody. And for some people, they felt that he was being very violent, and by definition, you know what I mean? Right. So I just want to know what you guys think about that too, because I don't want to miss that. Excuse me. It was women mostly in the room that felt that kind of way about his attack, and some guys too. I'm not going to say the guys didn't, but I thought it was interesting, and I thought it was something. I don't want to never be dismissive about how somebody feels about something, but what do you guys think about violence in that aspect?
Yeah, I think that that adds on to it. I think that's part of it, because of the verbal abuse or verbal words that are being spread to somebody can also be violent, in a violent manner. Because you've heard somebody, I will kill you. I'm going to do this to you. So that definitely has a effect on the psyche. And I think you have that to where, just people growing up, whether they were in a home where, the father was verbally abusive, and how that affected them going forward, growing up. So when you hear that, you feel a certain way.
Because those words are kind of attached to different things that happened, like those things that happened after those words were used, or in the midst of that, it was real physical acts around the words.
Absolutely. Even if you didn't experience it personally, you've been around it. Right. You've been around it, so you know what that feels like. Yeah.
And we're talking about a segue, when we're speaking about violence and the physical being, right? Violence in the physical being, violence in the verbal, context, which, like how you said, Kareem, having a big toll on the psyche, right? Which we all know, like today, we talking about how words or how things that people do can really have an impact on our mind, on our mental, right? So when you think about how violence has impacted, can anyone here think about ways that violence have impacted your life in any way? Right?
Absolutely. It's interesting. I mean, not even interesting. I remember as a child, and this is born and raised in Inglewood, 99th and Crenshaw. My mom, and I remember it to this day clearly. My mom had this yellow kind of silk outfit on, and her and my dad got into an argument, and my dad hit my mom, and she bled on this yellow silk flowy outfit. And it's still sketched in my mind to this day, to where it really affected me, to where as I grew up, just hearing an argument, it did something to me. You know what I'm saying? And then on top of that, to see another man lay hands on a woman, it does something to me. Like, if I'm around it, I can't watch it go down. Like, I'm gonna interject. Period. That's just off top. But it also affected me growing up to see how my mom reacted and how I've never put hands on a woman in my life because of that situation. Now, it could have worked a different way, to where you see that and then you think, oh, it's okay to put hands on a woman. You know what I'm saying? But for me, it affected me in such a way that I can't. Like, it's not even, I've gotten into some heated arguments, and the first thought was never to put hands. It was always to just leave.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Period. But I remember it to this day. And like I said, even if there's any verbal altercation that I'm around, my skin, I start sweating.
You tighten up.
I
like
tighten up, man,
yeah,
like
yeah,
literally,
yeah.
and I just don't like it. So I think that's a part of just how I live my life now, of just, avoiding conflict, not engaging,
Right.
but just living a life of just love and positivity, because I know how that feels.
And I want to ask you this, like, just piggybacking off that, you said something that I think was very beneficial to our conversation. I think that brings everything into context. You said this was something that happened when you was a child. This was something that happened when you was a child that's carried on with you every step of the way, and then to your adult years now. But in the way that you've taken it is, you've allowed yourself not to go down that road, right? So do you think there's any like correlation, like, to where, what about people who have experienced that as a child and grew up with it, but chose to take on that type of behavior? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, that's you know what? It's everybody's journey's different. I know for me, it affected me in a way that was just like, it just wasn't good. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, I remember it so vividly. My mom had this yellow, and then you see this spots of blood on her. That right there just freaked me out.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So for me, that turned on something in me, because I guess you would say, I was around my mom a lot. So, being raised in a beauty salon and being around black women, that was just my thing of just maybe wanting just to be more protective.
right. Let's see if
And
BJ wanted to comment.
Yeah, I was just going to add that what I'm hearing from Kareem is that he was able to identify trauma. And I think that's the big difference between certain people who maybe act out differently. A lot of those people haven't identified it, and they're acting out what they saw. And I think that even goes to a bigger conversation within the black community, because, and I don't want to go off topic too far, but we got trauma that has not been addressed
That's where I was getting
from generations. We've been dealing with trauma that we need to stop down and look at, and it's genocide that took place with our people. And so when we talk about identifying trauma, we have to first identify that to be able to move forward. We talk about genocides, and I said this on another podcast before, we talk about all the various types of genocides. All these people still have their culture, they still got their religion, they still got their language. We know if we strip back everything else, what took place here is, in a process of slavery, is they stripped us of our language, stripped of our culture, our names. That was a completed genocide. Because when we look at culture nowadays, what do people say? Oh, hip hop. We really don't have a culture that's identified, and so we can't even get to that part where Kareem was saying, hey, now I act this way. Because we have to first identify, the trauma. Once we identify the trauma, now we can start making progressive steps forward. Nobody wants to call what happened to us a genocide. And because of that, we keep trying to fall back and figure out what's what, but we need to just stop and say, listen, we got wiped out. Let's start today. Let's start today. And we see different groups or organizations or people, like Kwanzaa, for instance, is one, where you can see that was an attempt to try and get people to create some type of culture. It might be different because, I'm an attorney. Yeah, you see most attorneys in suits, and I got tattoos, like most people, like if I got a t-shirt, tank top on, they're like, oh, you don't look like, well, what does an attorney look like, right? And so, tying that back to the whole Kwanzaa thing, I might not want to walk around in garb or, in ancient Kemetic, wear. It's just the reality of where we are today. And in order for us to progress, we got to look at that trauma, and we got to just start from today and start to build. And when we start to build, then we'll start to see a change, especially as it relates to violence in our community.
I think to add to that point too, a lot of it is, like you said, they're not recognizing trauma. I completely agree. And what happens is that I had a friend tell me one time, I've been to so many funerals, I don't cry no more, right? And you got this, so the guy telling me like 20 something. You got to think like, first of all, that's already a lot, right? So what's happening here is he's been sensitized to all the gangbanger, right? But he's been sensitized to all the crime and the blood and today you wake up, tomorrow you lost your best friend, like that kind of thing, and it's happened so many times, you don't even cry no more, second nature, right? So now you aren't allowing yourself to feel or process any type of real emotion, natural emotion that comes from like the life, right? And then that fear, what happens is sometimes that fear starts to be removed. And fear, I know, it likes to be pushed as like kind of like this bad thing, but me personally, I don't look at fear that way. I always looked at fear as like my spidey senses, right? Where fear is letting you know something is wrong a lot of times. Something's wrong, you might not want to go there because something wrong, but people always tell, when they talk about the fear thing, you got to run through that, you got to run, but you got to break that down in context. Like you got to be in context what you mean by facing your fears, right? So when you do have this kid who doesn't cry no more, doesn't know how to show his emotions, death and violence has become second nature. This is my world, or this is how the world is. And then you have a guy out here who doesn't value anything now because the world doesn't value my life. We're already living in hell. So why do I value yours? Especially if you look like me, and this has been what's been going on. And then you have this trickle down effect of like all this trauma, these things. And the flip side to like Kareem said, like you said, where somebody else could take it the other way, right? Where you see your dad hit the mom, and then all of a sudden now you're abusive. Or it's like if you remember, I'm not sure if it was, I think it was the American Pimp documentary when Gorgeous Dre was talking about how his dad was a pimp and his mother was a prostitute. And he grew up in a home, he seen nothing but girls going through his house, his dad dressed up, and what he didn't give you was the dark side of that, but you pretty much got it pictured. But he is now, not now today, he's reformed now, but he ended up being a pimp and going to jail, and it's like where he got that from, we grew up thinking that was regular life. This is what life is. So it's normal. It's normal. So when like you said, man, not knowing, not even identifying that's trauma is a real problem. It's a real issue because you'll just fly through life not knowing, may seem like a lot, but not knowing right from wrong a lot of times. And then you just live it because everybody around you, you know how your world becomes the world? Right. Yep. When it's not necessarily that way. Right. You know what I mean? So you start lashing out, living, and then you hurt all these other people. Yeah. And you're like, well, I mean, this is life. And like, no, that's your life, but it doesn't have to be. Right. And until we deal with that, like you said, until we deal with those issues, then it's going to continue being a bigger problem.
So with that being said, it's just, I think what we can come to an agreement on is that we got to first identify and deal with that trauma. Yeah, absolutely. You know,
and that can be the hard part.
That can be the hard part.
That's the hard part,
right?
Because nobody wants to deal with
something that emotions.
The alcoholic saying, "Oh, I'm an alcoholic."
Exactly. Right.
Yeah. Right.
Nobody wants to deal with that harsh truth.
I mean, if you look at it, I believe just as men, or we can speak specifically to black men, we aren't taught to deal with emotion. I want to say one of our biggest obstacles are that when we deal with pain or sadness, again, like Luck said, we push through it. We're taught to be tough. We don't embrace those emotions, and we don't, again, BJ said, we don't deal with them. So we end up moving through life with this false perspective of how we should deal with pain and emotion, which usually affects our friendships, our relationships, and just your ships all through life, right? So, yeah, man, we definitely have to get back to that. We have to learn to deal with emotions, learn to identify them or traumas, so we can grow.
You know, it's funny when you think about that too. Like not knowing how to process or deal with your emotions. Like I always, my queen laughs, my friends laugh. I always tell people I'm a crier. Like I'm to watch the movie, cry, see the people get engaged, cry. I'm that guy. I don't feel no way about it. It's what it is. I'm still me. But that's what's going to happen. So if it ever happens, even in this conversation, if it get real and the rain fall, the rain's just gonna fall. That's what's gonna happen. That's what's gonna happen. But I couldn't imagine, with me being that way, I couldn't imagine trying to hold back my tears when something bad or happy or whatever is going on. I couldn't imagine what it feels like. It's like trying to hold in a sneeze.
Yeah.
You know how much it hurts when you hold in a sneeze? You shut your eyes, your head hurts a
Feel it
little
all in
bit.
your stomach and all kinds of stuff.
It's just, essentially what you're doing is when you hold those emotions in and you tuck them away, you're hurting yourself. Not allowing yourself to process that thing. So when it happens, when BJ says anything to me, bump into me, anything, then boom, now I'm a powder keg, and I can't rationalize minuscule to big, huge problem, and I just blow up. And he's going to get the brunt of that because I haven't dealt with anything I've been dealing with in my life, living in the streets or whatever you're doing. Not even living in the streets, just I don't want to tag trauma with living in the streets also. Trauma comes from everywhere, and you know, but yeah, if you don't process that, I can imagine holding back, keep my tears and you'll just start shaking, and people do that on a daily.
And then when you have two people that's dealing with that same thing collide, right?
See, that's what I was gonna say.
Right.
That'll tie back in what Mark was saying earlier, because if we know, and I'll just use Luck as an example, that he's dealing with that internally, or maybe I don't know, but I can just recognize that our people have dealt with a lot. Then we tie back in this whole verbal abuse that what you was talking about, or Luck, it was you actually talking about. It doesn't have to just be physical. That verbal abuse becomes a triggering point now for you who have this whole process of perpetuating physical abuse now, and now it's on. Now it's on. And that's what we're dealing with. But it's just not respecting really ourselves. Because if I look at y'all, I should see myself in all y'all.
You hit it right on the nose. It's about looking at your brother and really seeing yourself. You know, I'm a product of the 70s. You know, so I just remember being around my dad and him being around his partners, and it was always, "What's going on, brother? Love you, blood. What's up, brother?" You know what I'm saying? It was always that. So for me, once again, that's what I adopted. So whenever I see black men, it's always love. It's always love. It's always comfort to me. It's always a comfort level to me. No matter me growing up in Inglewood and the gang banging, it was always a comfort to see brothers. And I think that's, for me, why I didn't gang bang. Had opportunities, but it was a funny story. They was like, "Yeah, man, we about to go to Venice and ride on these dudes." And I was like, "But what they do to me?" Ain't nobody did nothing to me.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I can't ride on somebody and go and beat up somebody when I don't even know you. You know what I'm saying? Like that for me was just part of the reason why I stayed away from that.
Right.
And I just try to preach that, as far as I think once you start to have a love for yourself, and you see the love in your brothers and sisters, you tend to approach and you tend to walk and give an energy to where it's a comfort level. It's nothing of, you know, I got to stiffen up or I got to do this, but it's just like, "Oh, man, that's my brother right there. Man, that was good, brother." You know what I'm saying? And I think that's what we need to get back to. That's
what we definitely need to get back to. And I think it's so important that you say that, you know, because I think if we can get back to that, I think it will be easier to address or identify the trauma and address the problem, address the things like that. I love that you do that, Kareem, because I find myself trying to do that on occasions or just whenever I come across someone, you know, I try to make it a point to give that energy or let off that energy of what's up, my brother, but not in no weird way, but just in a way to where it's like it's love. And you'd be surprised on some of the reactions that I get. Right, you know, a lot of times if I came across, it's gonna be love back and forth. We're gonna be looking at you like, "Man, where I know you from?" Right. You know what I mean? Because that love feels so real that where it's like I have to know you from somewhere, but really it was just me just you know loving my brother at that point.
It's the art of disarming people.
Yes.
You know, when you see somebody, and you see Kareem or you see anybody walking down the street, "Hey, what's up, man? How you doing?" Just that alone could literally just relax somebody. You know what I mean? Just that, because we know what the flip side of that is. We've been in situations where two people are looking at each other and both people think they're staring at each other. And then that becomes an unspoken thing.
Who's the toughest?
Now we're somewhere else we don't even need to be. We never even need to be here. But when you say, hey, my brother, how you doing? It's funny, me and Kareem,
We had this conversation
all the time. And it's funny. Me and Kareem, we go on bike rides. We on bike rides, or me and my good friend Bam, we'll be on bike rides. And we make sure we speak to even on the bikes. We're on the bikes, rolling on the beach, and hey, how you doing, Queen? Hey, my brother, how you doing? And keep going. It's never a no, getting at no girls and making. There's no extras to come with that. It's just, hey, how you doing? And everybody like, hey, how you doing? Or good morning, and smile, and then it's like disarming people. And it's so rare. It's so rare you didn't even peep. When you just said, you know, when I say, what's up, my brother? Not no weird kind of, but you got to peep though. That comes from that trauma. Mm-hmm. Just the fact that you named it that weird kind of, because nothing's weird about the energy in that.
Right. Yep.
Right.
But it's what happens is you're thinking, you're kind of like putting a scenario of what somebody else might think.
What somebody else might
that is
think.
weird, but nothing's weird about it.
Right.
But what happens is you're identifying what comes up in that kind of thought process between two black men.
Right.
Somebody may think it's weird.
Right.
I tell Kareem every time I talk to this man, if I leave or something like that, I love you, my brother.
Yep.
He always say I love you too. We don't feel no way about it. It's second nature. I love that man when I see him. Just the same thing. I love you, G. And I mean, I love you too. We move and we. It's so normal now. It's just like it's the thing. But I make sure I do that because I always say I'm gonna tell people how I feel, and I always want you to know that no matter what somebody do, another man we love you. We care about each other, and that shouldn't be a thing. That shouldn't be like a weird thing. Respectfully, you know what I mean. So I think disarming people, making people comfortable, Kareem said he's comfortable in a room full of his people. He's comfortable. You know what I mean? That's a thing. Not being comfortable is a problem because you got to deal with why aren't I comfortable in a room full of people who look like me? And men who completely understand my background. That's how it should be.
So let me ask this though. So I think this is a good space to kind of throw in a solution, right? And I think I'm gonna use gang violence because that was kind of the one thing that there. Right. So us as black men, when we are, you know, it's like so we're talking about how we interact with one another, right? And we see gang violence, and we know that, you know what I'm saying, the history of gangs was not violence between us. Yes. Right. You see what I'm saying? Like the Crips and the Bloods, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm sure everybody knows the acronyms for them. I'm not going to be able to give it to you right now because but you know what I'm saying? But it was black men coming together to protect their communities, right? And those within the community. How do we get back there? Like I feel like we've gone so far, right? But how do we, because I think a lot of the violence, like, you know, you guys were saying, and there's been memes and people talking about it, is just like the uncomfortable feeling that you have when you see another black man, I feel like perpetuates the beef, right? The issue, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, what as black men could we start doing to then bring it back to, you know what I mean? Like I said, we know gang violence is never going to go away, but how could we get it back to its original point or the originality of what it is and how we, you know what I'm saying, move with one another, right? Instead of looking at Kareem as a threat, you know what I'm saying, or looking at DT as a threat because I don't know him, he's wearing this, you know, color, it's silly stuff, right? Right. How do we get back to, like I said, recognizing you as a black man, as my brother, as, you know what I'm saying, like my folk? You
because
know what I mean?
in return, and I think that's where I was going to try to get to, because in return, if we get back to that point, we reduce violence off top.
Right.
We reduce violence off top because a lot of those uncomfortable situations, right? And I pity, I mean not pity, but I ditto off everything you saying with regards to that weird, that shouldn't even be a thought process, right? But that uncomfortable space that black men have with each other eventually leads to violence because, like you said, two people, say it again, you said two people staring at each other don't know that they just looking at, you know, just looking. It ain't even no big deal though. Yeah. But then sometimes those situations flip and go left field because somebody misinterpreted that the wrong way, and then next thing you know, we got another black man shot or dead or just something happened from that, right? That could have been prevented had we been off that love with each other just from the get-go.
I just want to add one thing. So our dear brother Barack Obama, you know what I'm saying, is unfortunately wasn't able to make it here right now, but he's online and he's like, yo, I want to chime in so bad. You know, Butter got a lot to say.
Shout out Butter.
What's up, Butter?
So we're gonna try to figure out as we're talking, I'm gonna try to figure out if we can call him in because I'm trying to see how we'll be able to hear them, because essentially it'll go through our mixer and we won't be able to hear. So I might have to put them on speaker or something. But we're gonna try to get Butter in for anybody who's watching who definitely wanted to see Butter. We're gonna try to get him in. But that's what I just want to say, just for that.
I think BJ hit it right on the nose. Is trauma. That's the biggest thing, because once we identify the trauma, with that, then we start learning about ourselves. It's culture. It's, I think for me, the turning point in my life was I was just saying, looking at Roots. And that was really kind of like my first education on what went down. You know what I'm saying, from slavery. And then as I got into college, it was just really like I was turned all the way up. Like, man, what have I been doing when I walk into a room and, staring and everything. And I think a lot of it is just love, man. It's self-love and knowledge of self. I think if you know your past and where you come from, you tend to start to walk and talk and act, in your future. You know what I'm saying? It's the old cliche. Yes, we come from kings and queens. Act accordingly. You know what I'm saying? We didn't just start from the slave ship. We had dynasties back in the day. The Mali tribe and things of that nature. So, and the Moors. So I think once we start to have knowledge of self, we tend to start acting and looking at our brothers and sisters in that way. Without love and knowledge of self, we'll continue to have this violence.
And I'm gonna add on to that I completely agree, but I want to take it to an even more micro level, where you look at John Doe, who from whatever hood, he don't want to hear about the Moors, he don't want to hear about kings and queens. For one reason, he ain't got a meal to eat tonight. For another reason, he already caught up in something that his family was caught up in, so he beefing. He done been in a shootout last week. Right. He got to go do whatever he got to do today to survive for tomorrow. And so although I completely agree that essentially it's the culture that we got to get, it's the other aspect of providing those resources. And that's really what's going to have John Doe say, all right, you know what? I can turn away from this quick buck today. I can turn away from, we can't have just the resources without the culture, or the culture without the resources. We got to be doing all of this at the same time. We got to tackle the micro with the macro at the same time, because of how much trauma has been done. We can't do one without the other, because we can give bro the culture, but without the resources,
He can't do nothing.
he's gonna be doing the same thing. And in fact, he don't want to hear it.
Absolutely.
So will we say that education is key?
Education on so many different
On so many
levels.
levels,
I would even say more opportunity. The
Opportunity.
opportunity to excel. I think we're lacking that in our community.
Yeah.
So if you have nothing to do, what do? You get destructive.
Yep.
We gotta think, because none of these answers are wrong. Education, opportunity, resources, all these things, knowledge of self, all these things are all the correct answers. What's happened to us was so severe and such a unique issue that it has to be, we have to be attacked, for lack of better terms, from all sides. You know what I mean? And we have to, how we completely turn and flip what has been done to us, we have to learn all these things. All these things have to be a thing. Because, if you give us tangible resources, then the people, the miseducation and no knowledge of self, you're gonna mess that up too. You know what I mean? And because now you're dealing with other things. And back to our original thing, if you haven't dealt with all the trauma, then you're gonna mess all that up. You're gonna be back at square one, and then all they're gonna say is, "See, we gave y'all You know, oh, y'all want a reparation? We got the money. You know, we dropped the bag off. You know what I mean? Look what y'all did with the bag. Like, you know what I mean? Right. We good. We did our part. Now what y'all gonna blame us? You know, so when knowing, which we know and they know, that the issue isn't the trauma. Once you, like you said, once you took away our spirituality, our language, our love of self, our knowledge of self, once you took away all that, you stripped us down bare bones to nothing. And even in that aspect of what happened, the beauty in that is that we sit here today. My brother's sitting here, a lawyer. He's not supposed to be that.
Right.
This man is not supposed to be a lawyer. You're not supposed to be a successful actor, working, doing all this shit. We're not supposed to be here having a conversation about any kind of free anything or freedom to make a choice. We're not supposed to be doing it with everything that was happening to us. Such a unique issue. Like no other human on earth ever went through this kind of issue. Such a unique thing. And to be sitting here, that's the beauty in it. So I always like to shine that part on the beauty in it also, because everything else sounds like we just punching bags. You know what I mean? And though we have been America's punching bag or the world's punching bag for some time, even in all aspects, but they never talk about us fighting back. You know what I mean? And this is us fighting back and succeeding, having conversations, because the main part is that us, if I can look to BJ or look to Justin, whoever, look at one of my guys and say, nah, that ain't cool. Yeah, I'm your brother and I love you, and I shouldn't have to say that. But if I tell you like, nah, bruh, you can't even speak to her that way, not in front of me.
Right.
I would rather you do it never, but in front of me, I can't even allow it.
Right.
And I love you, but it's gonna go somewhere if you continue doing that. Right. Now, what happens is that's not me choosing violence because of that situation. But what I want, you have to know that there's a consequence for attacking or touching one of us. And this consequence doesn't come from violence necessarily, because it's not a threat like we're going to fight. But what it is you have to know that nobody around you will validate your actions for this kind of stuff. Yep. And if that happens, I think us as black men, we would start checking ourselves, because when we go out into the world and do these things, you're usually with a bunch of other stupid people who with that same kind of mentality. I brought up, as I was with some of my guys one day, right? And one of my guys was like, he was looking at this woman going. I think we were at the beach somewhere, riding bikes. I'm always riding bikes, so we had to be somewhere.
Shout out to the bike ride, bro. Bike to power, man. Bike to power. Urban man cycling.
And one of my guys was looking at this woman, and I'm known to be the guy that I'm loud. Like I always say, I'm loud with my love of my woman, and so he was jokingly saying, like, look, man, I'm just looking. I said, bro, I don't have a problem. I'm a grown man. I'm a looker. But what I loved about that was they know
He respected you.
you can't do that around me.
Yep.
I'm not your man that's going to go somewhere and watch you disrespect your queen like that.
Right.
Because I can't have it.
Yeah.
And I won't have it.
Yeah.
Now, what I've done is I'm setting an example of myself. And in my circle, I'm that guy.
Right.
So what happens is, one by one, it'll maybe start to affect somebody else.
Yep.
And then in his circle,
He's
outside
that
of
guy.
this,
Yep.
he's that guy. And then
Yep.
that's how we do the trickle-down effect.
Yep.
And we start that change.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And it's a bigger picture, obviously, right? But if you set the example in your circle, your circle will eventually be my circle.
Yep.
And then it'll continue on. And then that's how we turn into the kings and queens we're supposed to be.
Facts.
That's a great point.
So I think that's a good also segue here, because we also want to talk about domestic violence, right?
We do want to talk about domestic violence.
And that's very taboo. I think that's the one thing that I feel like women feel that we don't discuss, right? Like it's not something that is had a discussion that's had amongst a group of men about that situation, right? So I think, like talking about queens, right? And I think this point is how do we, because I find that to be an issue right now, right? Within our community, with our young black men and young black women, that domestic violence, physical violence on a woman and or men, right, is starting to become, I don't want to say normalized. I don't think it's gotten there yet, but I feel like it's getting there, right? And so what are your thoughts on domestic violence? Being, the men being the perpetrator and or the women being the perpetrator, because it's happening both ways, right? So let's just have a, quick meeting on that.
Well, I mean, before we even jump into it, I mean, when I look at quote unquote black TV, that's what I see. I see the housewives and people jumping across, and you just see physicality all the time. And maybe producers aren't getting the budget to produce the Cosby shows anymore, or whatever it is. But I see not just men depicting violence in these shows, I see women depicting violence way more than I've ever seen growing up. And what we deal with on a regular basis now is internalizing what they see, acting out what they see consciously or subconsciously.
Right.
And, that's the floor, I think, as to where we are today, is because everywhere you look, you just see it, And so now, in your home, you might be peaceful. Kareem, using you as an example, you might have dealt with certain stuff in your past, and you see, like, I don't want no part of this, but because of what's been embedded in our system, in our head, in our subconscious realm on a day-to-day basis, now you got to see it. You got to witness it. And how do you deal with that? Like, I haven't, well, actually, I probably have at some point or another, had to deal with a woman trying to get physical with me. And, obviously all you can do is step back for many reasons. For one, so I'm just not going to get physical with a woman. It's just not what I'm going to do.
Facts.
For two, even if you did do that, you're going to jail right away. Even if you tried to just restrain her certain times, you might go to jail. Your best bet is, I literally had to run in this one situation that I was in. I wasn't scared or nothing. I ran from the situation. And when I say I didn't get I literally ran.
Got on.
Ran down the street.
A full sprint, right?
I'm dead serious. I remember I hid behind a bush just so that she could think I disappeared and went somewhere else.
Right.
We got to just avoid the situation, and obviously we'll go deeper in the conversation here about it, but again, identifying where it's coming from. I see it, like, I got a niece, and I just don't want her to see this stuff on TV because it's not in the household. We can't control everything she sees, though, in the programming.
But I also think it's that, but this country has had a history of violence.
Ooh, yep.
You know what I'm saying? When we were brought here, violence was put upon us.
Oh, yeah.
So then that goes into the DNA to where if my great-great-great-great-grandmother experienced it and passed that down to her child in some kind of way, whether it's nonverbal, whether it's shaking because of something that has happened, once again, it goes back to the trauma.
Yep.
Trauma that has happened in a family can trickle down to the kid, even while the kid is in the belly. You know what I'm saying? Because of what has taken place in this family's lineage. Right. I've talked to friends who said, man, I ain't never told nobody they love me. Their grandmother didn't tell them that. Well, then let's take a look back at what grandma experienced.
And
the traumas that grandma did,
right.
And how that trickled down to the grandkids. You know what I'm saying? So it once again, it's the history of this country has been violence, and it's been violent on African American people and just people of color, period. You know what I'm saying? And nobody wants to admit that. Nobody wants to say that, but it is true. The violence in this country has been put upon people of color since we have got here, period. And nobody wants to say, well, you know what? That's part of it. It is part of it because
big part.
It's a big part. You being taken from your land, being put on a ship, shackled, being told what to do, being tarred and feathered and raped in front of your family to show dominance and say, hey, this is what's going on. That's all violent. If it's not physical, I'm seeing it being done. So then that puts something in me to where now I either have to act out in that way because I see what has taken place.
Yep.
So we have to look at generation. You know,
So-
I heard, and I'll let you go. I heard somebody posted Kevin Gates was just like, "Yo, you got to go back 7 generations to go forward 7 generations. Once you heal 7 generations of trauma, you can go forward 7 generations."
We've been putting
And-
Band-Aids on
Yeah,
top
exactly.
of Band-Aids for a long time, but not addressing the
I was
original
like, that's a
wound.
bar right there.
Yeah,
like
for
to
real.
go back 7 generations to heal that.
Right.
That's
Just to be able to go forward,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's crazy. So I think, so I guess I want to probably just get a more specific. So when we look at domestic violence, right, and we'll just use now men being physically violent with women, right? Do we? Is it safe to say that it goes back to what you were saying, BJ, as far as it's what we see, right? Because we kind of, we tend to see this now with social media, how it's gotten with Instagram, World Star, like all this craziness. Like we see more violence perpetrated against women often, or is it something? And I think we'll talk about, or we've talked about, kind of what kids grow up in, seeing their parents. It might have been something that they grew up with, and then they're acting out on that, right? But I think now it's getting a lot more serious, right? Because I think this year alone, we've seen in the news, unfortunately, young women being killed by an estranged boyfriend, or what I'm saying, baby daddy, like whatever that is. And so not only is it men being violent with them, now fools is going beyond that. You know what I'm saying? And so it's like, what do we say that like that caused, or what caused said guy to be that violent to where it ends in death? Is that more mental health? Is it I think it's all included, but
When you talk about, ending death, you know what I mean? That's so extreme, right? But it's happening, which is crazy.
It's more often, right?
Which is crazy. But I was going to say, just in regards to BJ's point, that we see it, right? Which is, I think, is a big reason why it's more prevalent today, is because we see it. But then I want to piggyback off of one of Luck's points, where he went back and said he's that guy in his circle that's going to make sure that stuff like that don't happen.
Right.
There's not enough ambassadors right now for things like that to be frowned upon, right? Think about right now when you, and not saying when you, right, but when we see something on social media or on YouTube or World Star where this is taking place, you see numerous of people in the background, whether just standing back watching, recording, doing everything but going to that person, letting them know that action is not okay. Now, sometimes I can get it. It may be you don't know what's going on in that house. You don't know what's so. Sometimes it's safe for your family, right, to kind of stay back. But then, like Luck said, it's not happening on my watch. It's not happening when I'm around. So until we take that mindset and say, I'm not about to watch another female, let alone a black female, get beat up by whoever it is right here, and I'm just sitting back and say, well, that ain't my problem. Right? Whatever got him to that point, clearly it's not your problem. But in order for us to move past this being normal, we got to check people, man. Like, in a way that you said, not in a violent way. Right. You know what I mean? But just that energy, or just however that is.
But to add to that also, and I got to be 100% transparent and honest. Sometimes it may go to violence. And I only say it because of you understand you're dealing with another man. In that scenario. Okay. Like, so if one of my homeboys decide to flash on his lady or his queen or whatever and go way crazy, then sometimes I gotta match his crazy to get him off her or whatever, stop whatever that's gonna do. And it's not that I'm choosing that, but at the point is I gotta defend her and myself. Right. So, and I don't know what he's going to do. So sometimes, I'm not saying like, my intentions aren't to do violence ever. Like, I don't want to touch nobody disrespectfully in no kind of way, right? So, but when I say it's not on my watch, I'm letting somebody know you probably going to have to max out if you want to get past my watch. Right. And now you got to be willing to bet if I'm going to max out or not. Because, and I think because what good is my word if they know I'm just a pushover in that? And when it comes to something like that, like when it comes to verbal stuff, like, you know, I remember one of my, this is crazy that this is a true story. One of my friends, I had posted something about Meg Stallions and Tory Lane's situation. And one of my friends left a comment on some craziness. Like, I'm not going to use the word, but it's crazy about Meg. You know, just straight up blaming, don't just cursing and all bees, this, that. If you talk like this, then you get that. I couldn't believe they even left all that in my comments. And I just blocked them. It was no thing. I just, you know what I mean? It's you know, I get it, blocking is the thing, but you know, your friends take it personal nowadays, whatever. And then he called me like, man, you blocking me? What is you on? I said, what are you on?
Right.
Who am I to say I'm this man loud and publicly? I'm this guy. And then I let you do that in my comments, and you're my friend doing that.
Right.
So here's what happens. I'm not with what you on, and since it's F me, then we don't never have to do what we're doing again, ever be friends or anything.
Right.
We don't have to ever be that. That's your choice, though. Like, because if you, which let me know, back to our original point, like sometimes violence can be just verbal. You sound violent. You sound like somebody who would have did what is somebody's being accused of.
Right.
Facts.
And that ain't the kind of guys I want to be around.
Right.
It's just not. But that's the guy I also know will max out. Like, you know what I mean? He's gonna go, he gonna go all the way. So sometimes the situation will make you go all the way. But I can't let it happen on my watch. I just can't. That's why excuse me, that's why I lead my days in prayer. I lead with love. And I'm always being that guy, excuse my voice, I'm always being that guy because you gotta be willing to go somewhere somebody's not gonna go for your principles and values and the things you believe in sometimes. I would hate to be in a situation where I'm backed into a wall and it's about to get violent because I'm protecting my queen or somebody, or just another queen out there. I hate that for that to happen. But I cannot. What Kareem looked like when he said, not to keep bringing this up, but the look in his face, if you looked at him when he talked about his mom with the flowy dress, when you talk like, I'm a writer at heart. When you describe things like that, he's picturing it in such detail, which let me know what type of imprint it left on his life, how hurt that was to see that. He explained the drops of blood on her dress and how the silk flowy dress. That's how hard that was for him. No man or no woman should ever have to even deal with those kind of memories. And they are a real thing. So I'm not going to let you create none of those either, not at my space. Right. Yep. So that's why I be on when I'm on. So sometimes it does go there, but I never lead with violence. Never. I'm never going to lead with that.
Yeah. And I think, do you think too, like the fact that you never lead there, you never coming off with this energy, you know, of violence. I think by you taking just that strong stance, sometimes somebody who may have that violent energy, they may feel what you giving off and might just have that respect for you, you know, or just for the situation where, you know what, bro talking some real stuff, I shouldn't be doing this right now. You know what I mean?
And that helps because now if you have the opportunity to know me, then you already know where I am, even if I get loud. Right. I know that he's respectful. I know that he loved me. I know that's my boy. That's my brother. Yeah, so even if you're mad, I can kind of disarm you a little bit because we have a space that we've shared certain kind of trust in. Right. The random guy on the street don't know. He probably just flashed, and now I got to meet him with that. Right. You know what I mean? So it's a gamble sometimes, but I'm on what I'm on. We've been watching videos lately in the last year or two that dude's just been knocking women out on video, filming it, laughing, his boys laughing. Crazy. And I'm like that's, I still don't even get it. I don't even understand how that's fun for somebody. Now they laughing. How did 7 people witness this? Yeah, right. How did one of you knock out a woman and then all of us laugh? Right. And then defend the dude who did it. Right. Because she was on drugs or she was the neighborhood hoe, or whatever the case may be. Right. That was their excuse for them doing this to her. And then y'all let that happen. That's why he continues to do that, because of y'all don't check him. And that's why y'all going to start doing it because
we think it's okay.
y'all think it's cool.
Yeah.
And then the cycle continues of BS on top of BS.
Yeah, I think also too a big factor what Lux said is accountability.
That's huge.
That's huge, especially with black men. When we really like within this year, we really like became super cool. Sure. And people would have thought that we've known each other for years, but it's the accountability. It's the iron sharpens iron. If we're together, I'm gonna make sure you are accountable, and he's gonna make sure that I'm accountable. And when you are, and like you said, it's different cells. If you are around your friends and you're giving off this energy and say, hey, this is not gonna happen on my watch, and you reach one person, then that person then goes back to the hood or the OG and says, listen, y'all can't be doing this because these are the consequences. You know what I'm saying? So I think when you start to have accountability and people in your circle who are going to check you about certain situations, you know, like if I'm hanging with, it's not gonna go down.
Right.
So I have to act according in this way, and I think we just have to have accountability within ourselves as black men to where, like we said, if we do see something, hey, listen, brother, it ain't even worth it, brother. Let's walk away and talk about it, because that's another way just to diffuse it. Like you said, when you come with love, it can diffuse the situation without
contagious.
you even having to say anything.
It's
The brother
contagious.
can look
It's
at
a
me
real
like,
energy.
Oh, man.
It's a real energy.
It's a real energy.
It's a
It's
real
a real
energy.
energy. You know, so I think the biggest part, man, is accountability, man.
And we
Us
just gotta
within
be.
ourselves.
I'm sorry, Justin. We just gotta be open-minded to accepting that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I would want to be out somewhere, and let's say if just whatever the moment I'm in, and I'm getting ready to make a mistake. Like I would want you, even if I didn't know you, Luck, to be able to come pull me to say, hey, brother, that might not be the right choice.
Right.
Like I would want that, right? Because that's me, and I've reached a point to where I welcome that, you know. But we should all want that, and I think that's, if we can get to that point as men, as black men, you know, it'll be a lot.
So I think
I do, but to your point, real quick, to Justin's point, to the original question of domestic violence, right? The root of it is most of us, men and women, we have to deal with our own issues before we enter into relationships. That's how you stop a lot of this. Key. I don't want to completely jump over your question, and we've been dealing with it, but I want to really attack what that is, right? So how do you combat that domestic violence inside of relationships, dealing with couples or best friends or whatever? Is, you guys, it's very important that we deal with our issues before we hop into relationships. A lot of times people just hate to be single or hate to be whatever because of the trend or because of what the memes are saying. Right. You don't want to be single. But a lot of times you aren't ready to be with anybody because, like I said, man, if I got my problems that I haven't even dealt with yet in no kind of way, and then I meet a woman and she's coming in with her things that she probably hasn't dealt with, it's just a powder keg waiting to happen. We haven't dealt with our issues, so what we're going to do is lash out at the person we quote unquote love, because then we start identifying certain parts of trauma with, is this love, and you love me, so you're supposed to, or you're mine, now we're property, right? And then we haven't tackled these issues. So now you got two toxic people joining forces. They don't realize they're making a bigger toxic situation. So to your question, I think that's key. You can't just be jumping in relationships with people. I've been with my woman 10 years this year, and I wish I would have knew now. I wish I knew then what I know now about entering that relationship, because I put her through a lot just with my traumas and dealing with women outside of us.
Right.
Dealing with women, and when I realized I had to check myself and pray and then talk to, I got therapist friends and I would talk to and all that. Kareem kind of met me in my new form of me going into my new man I am today, with the name change and everything. So I had to learn that later, and my relationship is the best it's ever been in my 10 years. But I had to deal with my stuff.
Right.
I have to deal with it and check myself, hold myself accountable, and deal with all my things so I can finally do what women all been asking us to do throughout history. they always tell us, you don't hear what I'm telling you. You don't hear me.
You're not hearing me.
You're not hearing me. We fight that as men. We think it's a physical, like, no, I hear you. No. You hear her, but you don't hear her.
You're not comprehending.
You're not comprehending what I'm, you listen, but you can't. You know what I mean? So once I got to that point, not only did I deal with that, I also had a conversation with my queen about, I sat her down, the first thing I said was, babe, I hear you. I get it. They had a long conversation about what it means to hear her, and it changed her and me together. She saw me in a different light. She saw me as the guy who he gets it.
He gets it.
He hears me. Now let's do this. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because it was downhill if I didn't. So, though I was never abusive, what if it's like taking that kind of not preparedness or not dealing with your issues into a relationship? Then all of a sudden you guys are fighting and doing all these things. You haven't dealt with your issues, because if you dealt with your issues, no man and no woman are not going to be putting hands on each other. Right. Period. It's not happening, because you understand there's ways to deal with issues without doing anything. It's like we sitting here and nobody used foul language, but I didn't ask Justin if I could curse or not. But we understand that. So we understand that we do have control of the things we do and say. It's just proof. We didn't have the conversation about cursing or not. Right. I don't know if we can or not. But I chose not to, just, you know what I mean, just because that's how we rocking.
Yeah. It's the energy.
Like, it's the energy, right?
It's the energy.
Same thing in relationships. Deal with your stuff, because you know what's right and wrong, period. But you got to deal with yourself. All that nothing wrong, I don't think nothing wrong with me, that's not for you to assess a lot of times. It's not. It's not, and that's the thing. It's not. Sometimes that's crazy don't know crazy all the time. Right. You know what I mean? Right. So that's real.
No, and I, you know, and look, and I commend you, bro, because like I said, we've known each other for years, probably 10 or so. You know what I'm saying? And so the dude that I see that you are today also has helped me. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, I've always talked to you and was like, yo, like, hey, I need to talk to you about some stuff, right? You know what I'm saying? Because I see the change that Luck has just made in who he's been and become. And I'm like, yo, like, that's dope. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of his philosophy, like, I be wanting, like, yo, so why did you, you know what I'm saying? Like, how did you get to that point? You feel me? So I think that's dope. So that's super, super commendable. I'm just going to, you know what I'm saying, pat you on your back while we're sitting right here.
Good luck.
But good luck. Yeah, exactly. So that is a tangible walk-away solution to how we can kind of curve domestic violence, right? Because we got to deal with self before we get into a situation where we have to work on somebody else. Also, what you guys were talking about, the accountability. I think the accountability part is dope amongst or across the whole board, right? Because the one thing that my parents used to say to me when I was younger was like, yo, when you walk out this house, you're a representation of them, or you know what I'm saying, of my parents, right? Yeah. And it was always one of the things that I was fearful of, going out and making my parents look bad, right? You know what I'm saying? So a lot of stuff when I'm out, like, I gotta be the person who my parents know that their child is supposed to be, right? Absolutely. Not to say I didn't act out, you know what I'm saying? But 95% of the time, I'm that person that they, you know what I'm saying, that had to represent our household name. Yeah. So the same concept, I think, with us is that we have to, as a friend group, right? Because I consider every single one of y'all friends here, right? I have to hold you accountable, whether it be Devin, you know what I'm saying, out doing something, you know what I'm saying, that I'm like I said, like, it ain't that ain't us, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not it. And understanding that I also could, at any point in the social media world, be blocking, but in real life, just be like, yo, we can't be friends, because if that's the type of person that you are, I don't want somebody to see Devin and be like, yo, that's J boy, and he out here, you know, acting crazy, or anybody else. So surrounding yourself with people that you can hold accountable, you know what I'm saying, and that understand it, right? Because like I said, they got to think twice about that moment that they're about to have with their woman, that I can't do that, right? Or that moment that I'm about to have out in the streets with some other cat, like, you know what? Nah, you know what I'm saying? It's almost like that slogan of what would Jesus do, right? It's like, what would Jesus do, right? What what should I be doing at this moment that my boy would either say he's proud of and or, you know what I'm saying, like respects that I didn't make him look bad. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to never make none of y'all look bad, right? So I'm going to make sure that when people see me, I'm a representation of every single one of you guys here and or my family. You know what I'm saying? So
And that accountability also opens up the opportunity to teach.
right.
That accountability opens up the opportunity to teach, because if Devin is your boy and he's doing something that you feel or that we all know is not the right thing, including Devin, right? But let's say if Devin doesn't know, he's just in that lifestyle, you holding him accountable and him trying to understand, why, gives you an opportunity to teach that brother what's right and what's wrong and how he should be moving. You know what I mean? So I mean, it's one-fold, two-fold, three-fold. There's so many things that you can bring from it to really help us grow as black men. Yeah. You know what I mean? When we're dealing with violence, because all that will carry on into domestic violence, community violence.
Right.
You know, whatever kind of violence it is, it will carry on into that if we can begin to do
And
that.
really, I mean, that's really what we're talking about is just the collectivity, you know? And, you know, a lot of us, we talk about it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to keep a man the man that he's supposed to be every day, you know? Like where you can look to your brothers, to your homeboys, to your friends, to your family members, and they'll keep you in line. That's the village, you know? And that's important because, look, Luck just told us about a transformation. And God willing, it stays the course, but that's where everybody else comes into play to make sure that his transformation where he is today, the only way it transforms is to evolve even better.
Boy,
that's
go
it.
up, it goes up,
and that's where that village comes in. And a lot of times, for one, some of us have it and don't really appreciate it. And a lot of us just don't have it. You know, we just don't have it. And you get collective minds together. I don't have everybody's phone number here. I promise you I'm not leaving the day without it. You know, I'm going to tap in because it's those collective minds that I got to be reaching out with and talking to on a regular basis, you know, because they going to keep me straight, you know. Exactly. I came from, we talked about trauma. I done been shot up in cars, you know, not physically. Luckily, I got away. Cars shot up, you know. I done been in multiple situations where I done dealt with all kind of trauma myself, running in the streets. You know, I'm a lawyer now. I didn't grow up like that. It was drastically, different. It was a long road to get here. You know, I'm here today, and there was a certain point in my life where I started valuing my life, which in turn made me value the life of other people.
We need more villages like this.
And to that point, you have to always remember that your presence is a gift. You have to always remember that, because when it comes to people that are around you that you got to be the example for, sometimes the consequence have to be to remove the gift that is yourself, because everybody doesn't deserve your energy either.
It's true.
You know what I mean? They just don't. And because if you keep on giving it to them, then that's the green light for them to continue doing what they do.
Yep.
You have to. Somebody has to suffer some kind of consequence. Have to, and it ain't all about cursing somebody out or trying to check somebody being this bravado, hyper masculine man or whatever. Sometimes it's about removing the gift that is yourself, because your presence is a gift. That's just reality. It is. You said it. You said it. You got to do that, because that's the only way they'll learn. That's the way your friends will learn that. If you find yourself on the outside of a circle, you got to be like, well, what's wrong with me?
What did I do?
It must be me. And if you're the type to be like, oh, well, they all tripping, then you just got to deal with that. But they don't have to no more.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Because they removed the gift that is them.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? That's key. That's very powerful what you said.
Ooh, that's
definitely.
powerful.
Yeah, and I think also too, just adding on that, you have to be protective of your energy. You have to be protective of who you associate with and who you allow to come into your circle, because you know what they say: all skin folk ain't kinfolk. You know what I'm saying? And to go with your village, there's some idiots in the village too.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So once you recognize and identify, then you can act accordingly. But you have to be protective. Luck said, when we were talking, he was like, man, people send me all kind of stuff, DMs. He was like, man, I just tell them, if it's anything negative or violent, don't even send it to me. And that's real, because that can literally have an impact on your day.
Yep.
You wake up in the morning, check your DM and see something violent, you like, oh,
So your whole
God,
day is
well,
shot.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So
Your
you
whole day,
have to
the
be
energy.
totally protective of what you see, hear, you know, or what people are saying, you know, because that can affect you.
So, so my question though is when protecting one's energy and trying to stay away from the stuff that isn't what we're about or positive, right? How do we do that? But at the same time, try to reach the folk that need it, right? Like sometimes protecting our energy is fine, but I feel like also people need that energy, because when you think of mentorship, right? Like for most of us, we work with young people, right? And have worked with young people, and they're dealing with things and or in a space that isn't necessarily what our energy, you know what I'm saying, is to be. But how do we had like protecting our energy and trying to mentor and trying to pull somebody out of that negative energy space. Yeah. Where's that balance at? Because you know what I'm saying, like I hear it, but it's like it's tough because you're like, man, I'm about sick of this boy. Like you know what I'm saying? But we know that there's so much more work that has to be done and placed into that negative space. It's sometimes, I mean, to be honest with you, you ain't gonna protect your energy all the time. You know what I'm saying? Like I can't preserve it, you know what I'm saying, as I want to, because I have to, because that's the work that has to be done. Like I have to get to these folks. So I'm going to have to just, you know what I'm saying, my peace and whatever is going to have to go out the door for a little bit, because my job, and I feel like all our job is to really to be able to pull those people out of that bucket of negative energy and into a positive space. Into the positive space that we're always in. You know what I'm saying?
Heavy who wears the crown.
Yeah, that's a fact. Yep.
And
Pressure that comes with it.
so I always look at it as I always have to protect my energy, right? But I also understand that you got to know the difference between how you protect your energy and then who's trying to drain you of your energy. So you're moving in, it's a different thing. So if I'm mentoring people, or if I'm back at my mom's house in the hood, I'm talking to the homies, or which I rarely do, but if I am, then I understand it's certain kind of energies that I don't want to deal with. Like if I log on to whatever the social media is and whatever, and my timeline is crazy because somebody died and it's live footage of that death and all that, you know, how I protect my energy is now I log off and then I'm not on that for the day, right? But talking to someone or trying to mentor someone or trying to help somebody, one of my friends who's going through a lot or they dealing with a lot, usually in that space where there's genuine concern from someone and someone's not on the drain your energy vibe tip, your energy is fine in that space because it's all about your intentions and how you move. If me and my man shopping and he's dealing with some seriousness and I'm coming into his space, though you may be in a very dark space and you need some kind of teaching moment. Maybe I need to learn something from you. Right. But we got to click and try. I'm gonna try to work that out. I gotta release some of the stress for you, right? So it's like a secondary thing where my energy is already protected in this pocket of like I'm moving with intention, and I know that this is about to be a battle, not necessarily a battle against me. I need to help you with the battle you have with yourself. Right. So my energy so much isn't in danger. It's your energy we got to try to help out. So going in this space, it's a difference. It's not like what I feel for him and what he's going through in a moment. My energy can be drained from me helping you, but it's different if I took out money. Put it like this: if I took out my money out the bank,
and
gave it to somebody, or to pay a bill, or to buy my girl a dress or something. That's different than somebody coming to my ATM and stealing my money.
Right.
Money came out both ways. Right.
It's how they got the money.
It's how it came out. How it got out is the thing.
Facts,
right?
yeah.
So with your energy, it's the same thing with energy and how you deal with people.
Same thing.
So I'm making deposits into you. I'm putting deposits into you.
Yeah.
But in return, karma, good spirit, Ashe, whatever you believe in your spiritual system, universe, is pouring into me.
Pouring into you.
So it's a different kind of energy transfer when you're moving in that space.
Yeah.
But if I do come this way and you're maybe a sociopath, then now I gotta protect my energy from a defensive stance. But if I'm moving with intention and love, then I should be notified very quickly when that's happening.
Yeah.
So the spidey senses I talked about earlier, that kicks in. I'm like, oh, okay, you're abusing this. You don't really want help. You're just a snatcher of energy. You're a taker of souls, in a sense. And now I will be removing myself the minute I'm notified that that's what you're doing. So it's just it's ill how that works out. You know what I mean? But when you're moving with love and intention, and you moving in that space, you pretty much be fine if you listen. You got to also listen to yourself. You got to know when it's like we always talk about red flags, but then you think about it and you think about you dealing with people and how'd you get through these things. I'm like, well, you didn't pay attention to yourself. The red flags was there. You ignored them. You drove right through them. Right. Now you in this thing here. Right. Like, so when it comes to helping my brother or my sister out, the red flags was there. You didn't know that you were the one being attacked. You drove through them. Now you're here.
Now you're here.
But if once you recognize it's like your energy is preserved and how you move in your attention, the universe is going to protect all that.
And it's like I like how you put it with the transfer.
It
you know
is.
what I mean?
It's like
it's the type of transfer that's happening.
For sure.
You know what I mean? Is it a transfer? You know, shoot, is it Cash App versus Zelle? You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? The quality of the transfer, right? But it's me taking money out of my ATM versus somebody coming and just wiping out my savings account. You know what I mean?
Even if you break down the word money, my own need, energy, yield.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So
I didn't know where that was going.
He had that in his pocket for sure, right?
You know, but when you break that down, that's
Yes,
what
sir,
that
Kareem.
is. And
Yes, sir.
That transfers into life. You know, like you said, when you start dealing with certain things in your life and you attack those things and start working on those things, then you can go into a relationship with the things that you've healed from and be in that relationship, and that relationship blossoms. And it goes. And once again, you are teaching, but you're also learning from one another as well. I think when you get in a relationship, you want it to be reciprocated. You just don't want to always give. It's got to be some give and also learning as well. So I think I think once you get to that point, you'll start to see a decrease in domestic violence.
Right.
You know, and that's just dealing with your own personal issues before you jump into a relationship.
So
Very well said, man.
So
Well said. Go
I
ahead,
think
Dustin.
I think we've hit upon some points that I think are tangible, right? And I'm gonna put them out there, and you guys let me know if I forgot something or something was wrong, right? So I think for the talk of how do we just be better, right? How do we deal with violence amongst the spectrum of what violence is, we're considering violence. The few things that I got, the takeaways that I'm taking away are we'll start with knowledge, right? Knowledge, education, B, dealing with traumas, for the lack of relationship situations and our own internal stuff that we have that will just play out in the world in a very aggressive or violent manner, and accountability, right? And I think those are the three things that were huge, right? You know what I'm saying, throughout the conversation. But I think that's also was the theme throughout every single piece that we spoke about, right?
They
so
all
that's
went back there.
They all kind of went back to dealing with those three things. So I think this has been a conversation, man, well spent. Dialogue was amazing. You know what I'm saying?
That's what it was. It was just dialogue.
It was just dialogue.
And I think that's what what makes things work is when you can just sit down and you can just talk and you can just speak from the heart. You know what I mean? A lot of things don't need to be scripted in a sense to where you're going in there premeditated with what you're going to say. It's like just let it flow. Just let it flow. And I think that's how we really get to the table now, where we can go put the blueprints down on how we gonna move forward, right?
Oh.
But I want to thank everyone, man, for just
hold on one second. I'm just going. Butters texting me. Butters is always chiming in.
Before we close up,
so
before we wrap up.
let me say, Butter had something to say. He said, "You control what you consume."
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? I think that's definitely a bar. You know what I'm saying? Butter. So we appreciate that.
Butter with the Butter's
out to
final
Butter.
words.
His final word. He's been rocking with us the whole time, you
mayor,
guys,
right?
through text and stuff like that. So, but like I said, that was his thing is you control what you consume, which I think is dope.
And if I can add before we leave too, very important. I take a stance on this, and I lead this on a lot of our issues being black in America, right? Love your woman, and love your woman the right way.
Right.
You have to love your woman the right way. When you love, first of all, black women are everything.
Facts.
They are everything. Just the beauty and soul of the beings that they are literally everything. They are very, very, very much magical. There's never been an empire that didn't have a strong queen holding that empire down on the side, not behind. On the side. You have to, and the reason why I put that out there as one of the main things that can help us out in a lot of our ways is because the strength, the beauty, the resilience, the courage, the knowledge that is of the black woman. A man can go out and do what he's supposed to do and have the right mind frame when he's out there doing it. Because all that man wants to do
Let's get back home.
is get back home and take care of that woman.
Facts.
Because that's how dope she is. And I'm always so serious and very specific with how you love your woman, how you love your black woman. Because there's no time I leave my house, no matter what I'm going out through, no matter what I'm going through, no matter how I face the world, how I deal with, I've been getting right, I've been losing weight, I've been eating better, I've been having dope conversations with dope guys and women, and I attribute so much to my queen. And I've known this before my queen. Obviously, my mother, my grandmother, some of the most illest people I've ever had the chance of even knowing. And if we as black men hold our women down and love them like they're supposed to be loved, we will be okay. You will literally find value in any brother or woman standing next to you. And I don't even want to make that a black issue. Any man or woman standing next to you, by the way you love that woman and the way that love is going to be shown back to you, you can literally be out in the world and conquer anything. That is how I feel. And the guys I know that hold their women down and love their woman in that kind of way, the right way, 100% of you, not 99%,
Right.
not 45, nothing like that. 100% of when you give your love to a black woman who's going to take care of you and make sure you're good, you guys, and I love being reciprocated back and forth, you're going to be able to do anything. And I put that out there as a big issue because the rest of the things under that, I take care of itself. It'll all fall in line. We have to protect, love, and be very sacred and hold that down near and dear to us. Our black women. That's key in a lot of our issues.
Appreciate
I wanna
those
say that.
words. Look, appreciate those words, man. And you speak with passion. You speak with passion with that, and it's obviously the right take. I wholeheartly agree with you on that. And just shout out to you, man, for being here with us today. You know,
Thank
what I mean?
you for having me, man. I'm
We
honored.
appreciate
Truly,
you.
I'm honored, for real.
We appreciate your perception. You know what I mean, and perspective, and just your words on all the issues that we talked about today. You know what I mean? I got a picture of you, man. We go back to a long time ago, a party at a house somewhere, and I'm like, man, that's luck, man.
Got to be alone. A house party? You know me.
A long time ago, bro.
A house party?
You know what I mean? But to go from that moment, you know what I mean, to listen to your music, being a fan of your music, but then now to be a fan of you as a brother, to be a fan of you as a man, to be a fan of you as the energy that you put out, it means more than that picture and everything else that we had back then, because you a true brother, man. And
Thank
we
you, man.
appreciate
And I love all y'all, man.
You know what I mean?
Love
That's
you
how
too.
I am
Love
with my
you too,
brothers,
bro.
bro. I love y'all.
Yeah.
And I want everybody to be great. Continue being great.
Yes, sir.
Keep spreading love and positivity. And these conversations like this,
They're gonna keep happening.
that's what it's going to just trickle down and keep trickling down.
It's definitely
sure.
gonna get out there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? To where they see that.
And definitely gonna keep happening. So appreciate you on that, brother. Thank you, BJ. For being here. Go way back with BJ, and just watching BJ's journey of being an attorney now, man. It's hope. What that means to me is hope. You know what I mean? You know, for real, BJ.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
But it's hope though,
That's so glad.
because BJ, you give the next young black man hope.
Absolutely.
That I can grow up the way that I grew up, that I can deal with all these things, that I can face my traumas and face, you know, everything and still get to where I am today.
come
So
out on the other
we just
side.
thank you for always being a partner, a friend, man, and just the man that you are. You know what I mean?
Let me just say something on that really quick. Because some people use the fact that I'm an attorney today as a weapon against our people.
Okay.
And they say, look, he did it.
So can you?
It's no problem. Racism doesn't exist. Oh,
Right.
hood politics don't exist.
Right.
If he did it, everybody can do it.
Right.
And I didn't do it. I should have been dead, you know, a long time ago. I didn't do it or in jail. I didn't do it just because I'm smarter than the person who was next to me, who might be in jail now for 15 years. I didn't do it just because I was better than other people, you know. I was blessed. And I was lucky in many situations. You know, of course, lucky enough till I got to a certain point where I was able to become conscious. And then at that point, things started to take off.
Right.
And I only say that to say that, yes, I want to be, and we all inspire to be hope for other people. But there's critical issues in our community that have to be addressed. And of course, that's what we're here talking about today. But I just don't like when people utilize us as actors or lawyers or rappers, successful people who've, you know, created a platform or got to a certain place and just say, hey, everybody can do it. We got to fix this. Actually, I shouldn't even say fix it, because you can't fix something that was meant to not work for you. This system was meant to be like this. So you can't fix it. You got to dismantle it and build up a new one. But I just wanted to add that, because whenever I hear that aspect of hope, it's something else that comes along with that.
Right,
And just the fact that I'm here, it doesn't mean that there aren't struggles that need to be knocked down. There aren't hurdles
Absolutely.
that need to be, you know, taken out, so that so many more of us
Right.
can be here, or any
Still work that
various
got to
fields.
be done.
Right.
Still work that got to be done.
Yep.
Right. What Kobe said, job's not done.
Job's not done.
Job's not done. And Kareem, you know what I mean, meeting you today, you know, for the first time in the flesh, but knowing you, man, and your journey, you know, being in movies and stuff like that, you know, we just appreciate you and your insight. You know what I mean? I learned a lot from you today. You know what I mean? I learned a lot from you today, and not only did I learn a lot from you today, but I'm inspired by your words. You know what I mean? I'm inspired by some of the things that you've said, you know what I mean, to help us go out and be better people. You know what I mean? To help us go out and influence the next group of 6 people to do the same thing, where 6 turns into 12 and 12 turns into 24, and you know what I mean? And before I allow Kareem to give us his final thoughts, that's my challenge for everyone that's out there. You know what I mean? Go find a group of individuals that you love and care about and sit down and talk. Have these conversations. Right. Don't be afraid to have these conversations about violence and about domestic, whatever kind of violence it is, and what can you do to be the change? What can you do, like Luck said, to be that guy in your circle? To where that can carry on into another circle. You know what I mean? So Kareem, give your final thoughts before we close out, bro.
I think, you know, just once again, thank you, Luck, for introducing me to Justin and asking me to be a part of this. It's an honor and a blessing, and I don't believe things happen by accident. I think this is all divine. And, you know, once again, just accountability and being that change. You be that change. Don't wait for anybody else, but you take a look at yourself and say, hey, what am I doing to either perpetuate or, you know, add on to? What can I do to change the situation that I'm in? And I always say thoughts become things. So you have to start checking yourself. What you wake up in the morning and the first thing in your attentions set the rest of your day. So when you wake up in the morning, always have a positive thought, a positive intention of what you're going to do, and let that lead you. And once you do that, you'll tend to go through life a little bit easier, but you'll also start to attract like-minded people to you. So, you know, just be that change. Thoughts become things. Set your intentions with love and positivity and move in that.
Thank you, brother. And with Dev and Justin, my co-hosts up top on Urban Demand, you know, sitting on top of the platform.
Right. So I do want to speak to one thing, accountability. I believe we all agree that that's very important. And just people understand, the audience understand that it takes a certain type of strength to stand on your own two and tell people when they're wrong. Most people will flow with the wind. Whatever your buddies are doing, you decide, okay, that's cool too. So build your strength up, bro. Stand on your own two, and stand up for what you believe in.
Dope.
Wrapping up with Jay. Take us home, Jay.
All right, so actually we're gonna wrap up with Butter because you know what I'm saying, he's still texting and stuff. So shout out to Butter.
Appreciate the commitment though, Butter.
The mayor, you know what I'm saying? We definitely call him, he's the mayor of LA, man. Butter is doing some tremendous,
Keep it run,
amazing, awesome things. And so we just want to shout out Keep It 100.
Yes, sir.
That's his brand, and he's making a mark for, again, a lot of black men out of LA. You know what I'm saying? He's definitely putting his stamp in the athletic field with Nike and all of the things that he's been doing. He's a tremendous runner.
I'm training right now, Butter, to get you out.
Bro,
I'm training right now. I'm doing my training right now. I see you at the next.
That hip line, bro. That hip line.
I see him at the next. We're going to start off with like a little 40-yard dash though, or something like that. You know what I mean?
But
we ain't going to get into the Ks, the kilometers and all that.
But yeah, man, so, you know what I'm saying? But like I said, he couldn't be here, but I definitely still want to thank him for just taking part, man, via text and just, conversating. He definitely wishes he could have been here because
Big shout out.
Because he knew that this was going to be a dope conversation with his bros, right? A genuine conversation about a topic that needs to be spoke about. And you know what I'm saying, he knew that that's what this was going to be. So for me, I just want to thank you guys and give you my appreciation for this conversation. It was definitely genuine. It was definitely just, you know what I'm saying, it's not nothing scripted. We just had dialogue, right? And again, I knew that this was the space in which, and like I said, it was divine. The people that were here, the things that we had made sense. And so I just want to thank you, brothers. You know what I'm saying? I thank my partners, Devin and Mark.
Shout out Urban Demand.
Shout out Urban Demand.
Shout out,
Urban,
shout out.
Definitely
Urban Demand.
Real quick, Justin, to highlight Urban Demand. Just follow up Urban Demand just so we can kind of.
So we'll do that.
Shirts.
So check out our site, www.urbandemandbrand.com. We're on Instagram at urban_demand_brand. Some of y'all probably know about the cycling thing that I got going on, Urban Demand Cycling, which is a part just, under the umbrella of it. But, we are here to, we're on the journey of making purpose popular. That's our tagline, is making purpose popular. And so, you know what I'm saying, everything that we want to do is wrapped around purpose and making that the thing that people strive for, right? And not the latter. So, you know what I'm saying, that's our brand. Check us out, site, merch, we got all that stuff we want to do. We also want to thank our partners, right? So we want to thank Anti-Violence Ventures, which is a program under the California Black Women's Health Project, in partnership with Wade and Associates Group, right? It's also in partnership and funded by Blue Shield of California. So we want to thank them, for their asking us to be a part of it, and their participation in helping get all this stuff together. So we appreciate them, everyone. I appreciate y'all.
Also, too, let's shout out all virtual co-working.
That's this space.
This is the location. This is a black-owned, all co-working in Inglewood, California, Crenshaw, between 110th and 11th. Big shout out to Matthew Newman for allowing us to be able to have this space.
Beautiful facility.
Definitely, once again, just thank you guys for tapping in, and thank you, Matthew Newman, for allowing us to be able to have this here.
Shout out Matthew Newman, man.
Definitely.
Indeed.
And he got some dope stuff coming up. So, I don't know if Kareem want to speak about that quickly.
I mean,
you know what I'm saying?
Virtual co-working is we had that talk the other day. It is the Black Zoom, but it is it is a video conferencing. It's if Zoom and LinkedIn had a baby, you get virtual co-working. That is Matthew Newman, who is also the owner of All In Co-working. So top of the year, that'll be launching. So those who use Zoom, here's another opportunity that is two young black entrepreneurs, Olivia and Matthew Newman, who are behind it. So definitely be looking out for virtual co-working. It is a video conferencing with much more.
Sweet.
Dope. So other than that, I think, you know what I'm saying, time is of essence.
man.
You know what I'm saying? Good job,
man.
bro. Appreciate everybody, man.
Yes, sir.
Definitely appreciate everybody for
But
tuning in.
this conversation is over now, but it's not over for good. I see these conversations happening in our circles, in our own pockets, from you out there. Just keep it going. Once we keep it going, we'll get to change sooner than later.
Yes, sir.
All right, y'all. Have a beautiful Saturday, everyone.
Indeed, yes,
Shout
indeed.
out. Let's
Have
go.
a great one.
All right.